Hello and welcome to episode 150 of the Arena Regulars podcast. I'm Zach,
And I'm Jeff.
and we're your source for drunken Magic the Gathering arena content.
That's right. Just a couple of regular dudes drinking some irregular beers and talking about Magic the Gathering, in particular, the online client MTG Arena.
Oh, and this week is our happy hour for the Murders at Karlov Manor set. So we are going to be spending some time thinking about the nice things and drinking some cheap beer on happy hour.
It
Uh,
feels like just 5 weeks ago that we were introducing this set.
That's so funny because it was. This might be one of the fastest first sips to happy hour ever.
Yeah,
Really,
that was
really.
quickest turnaround yet, Wizards. Well done.
But I still have lots of things to say, so I'm very excited for this episode. Let's get into it. But first, each week we drink a beer. We rate it on a scale from bronze to mythic, just like the tiers in Arena. So with that, Jeff, what is on tap?
All right, this is an exciting one because it was one of those. There's some beers when we've been doing the show this long where we just assume that we've done it because it's a beer that we both know and is around. And then at some point, we're like, have we done this one?
Yeah,
I don't think we've done this one. And today's beer is a good example of that for me. This is Lagunitas IPA,
that's it.
kind of their classic. This was for me. I know you have a little more experience with it. This was, I would say, one of the early sort of migrants of the craft beer scene over to Canada, or at least
Okay.
in Ontario. So I was drinking this a lot when I had not cut my teeth yet, really, in the craft beer world.
Hmm.
And so this was like the beer snob go-to kind of thing. We were like, oh,
Yeah,
yes, I like this beer from California. That's an IPA.
yeah.
And the Ontario beer scene was just sort of starting and about to kind of really explode, but hadn't happened yet. And so I have some fond memories of always getting this while my friends are getting Budweisers or whatever.
Hmm.
And I had that holier than thou uh, experience because of this beer.
Yeah, that's funny because I mean I lived in San Francisco for like 6 to 7 years, and so Lagunitas is really close by. Yeah, believe it's in San Leandro, and so this was the same type of thing. This was a beer that was on tap in a lot of different places, and definitely the first IPA I ever had. I didn't like it, and I wasn't
Yeah.
drinking a lot of beer at the time. I was drinking like if I was drinking beer, it was all ambers or all stouts, and I wasn't really interested in anything else.
Hmm.
So people that liked Lagunitas tended to be a lot of like douchey bros that I didn't care for.
Right.
But like it didn't scream like to me it screamed local. It was like local beer, and
Right.
like that's like a lot of the vibe around it and not so much like snobby California. So it's obviously
Yeah.
interesting because it's just different places. For us it was like, yeah, support your local breweries.
Right.
So
Yeah. I was like, oh
but
man, if something from California made it all the way out here, it must be
so it
pretty
must be
good.
good. Yeah, so it is definitely well known, and that's why it doesn't have a name. It's just when you say Lagunitas, you're talking about this specific beer. Like you're not really
Yeah.
talking about any other beer. You'll have to specify like
Something
oh,
else. Yeah.
I drank a lot of their like double IPA. It's called the Denogonizer. Getting
Oh,
that on the show sometime would be fun because I have more fond memories of that specific beer. But
oh,
this
you
one's
have
obviously
memories.
memories of a double IPA. I mean,
Yeah.
like vaguely.
It didn't live
Um,
up to its name then.
I mean, I served it at a bar I worked at, so like I
Gotcha.
poured it a lot. I wasn't always, or most of the time, I wasn't the one drinking it. Um,
Hmm.
but anyway, Lagunitas. Let's crack it open. I haven't
Let's do
had
it.
one of these in so long. I'm so excited. All right. Oh, this better be doggone good, like the can says.
There's a dog on it too.
Yeah. All right, we
Sweet.
have some magic news. The Alchemy qualifier weekend is this weekend. So play in it if you can. Jeff's gonna be in it, battling it up.
Yes, it's true. I queued in
Yeah.
the best of one queues, but if you're not qualified yet, You can still do so if you're listening to this on Friday. Because
Because the plane is on Friday. This episode will come out on Friday. So hopefully you have time. If not, there's always another one. Um, but I did want to quickly touch like we had some big news come out about specifically arena competitive magic, which is really
yes.
exciting. Um, they are making a bunch of changes, which is pretty sweet. Um, Basically what's happening is that they're making it easier to qualify for the qualifier weekends and making it easier to, once you day two a qualifier weekend, continue to be on the qualifier weekend train. um, and I love this whole, all of this is great. I think it's putting more power in the players hands, rewarding people for like being a part of the competitive magic scene. I'm not deeply entrenched in it, but it's something that I really like watching, and I love to be kind of surrounded by. And so, any way to make more people involved is always a good thing to me.
Yeah, so people probably know lately have sort of been the way I interact with Magic centers around these playing events. It's sort of like something fun to just dictate. Oh, this month is alchemy. Okay, I guess I'll go play alchemy and try to figure that out. You're trying to qualify towards something, and I have a little less time to play than I used to, so it feels better to have more direction on
Hmm.
what to do rather than just kind of like, oh, what should I do? Like, I don't know if it's worth it to rank up because
Yeah, totally.
that kind of stuff. So it's been really helpful for that. But the problem is that honestly, winning one of these things is almost it's like a lottery almost because it's so difficult.
Hmm.
Like even if you're a great player, if you just think about, some of the best players in the world on the arena ladder, they might have 70 something percent win rate, right? But it actually demands more of you to go 7-2
Hmm.
twice. Like you have to go 14-4, right?
Hmm.
Um, Actually, no, 7-2 doesn't get you there. You have to go 7-1. You have to go
Yeah.
7-1 twice. So you have to go 14-2. Like that is an outrageous win rate for anyone, even the best players in the world. So it's a bit like you have to play well and get lucky.
Hmm.
And if you miss, you get nothing
Hmm.
currently. Like that's I think the biggest change for me that's coming is, I did get lucky once and for me it was a little different because I just wasn't able to play my last two matches and that was really
Hmm.
shitty.
Yeah.
But um the feeling that I was just left with was like I literally got nothing because day one you get gem prizes. You get plenty of
Hmm.
gems. Day two, there's almost no gem prizes. It's literally all about going 7-1. That's like
Hmm.
all you care about for day two. I think it's a few hundred gems maybe for each win, maybe less. And so it's like took the day, spent it to play this game, only got to 5 wins or whatever. And so I'm just left with like pretty much nothing for that experience.
Yeah.
So the
Ugh.
biggest change that I see coming out of this is like it would have really helped if I knew, oh man, I'm qualified for I'm get to try again next time. I
Hmm.
don't just have to start from the beginning and try to get lucky again and slog my way through because you have to go and it's this the 14-2 is after you already qualified for this thing, which demands
Hmm.
you go like
For
six
the
and two
play
or
in, yeah,
better,
yeah.
whatever. Now you have more shots at that, so your win rate doesn't have to be quite as high, but still like you do have to go
Yeah.
6-2. So now I think you get 3 wins or three, you're
Hmm.
allowed 3 losses, sorry, in the you only have to
so
get three
so
wins. Yeah.
so what Jeff's trying to say is that like normally you had
Three
to
and three or
go,
better.
yeah, you had to go 7-1. It's either 7 wins or 2 losses, whichever comes
Yeah.
first. Now it's 7 wins or 3 losses, which is what's normal for when we're playing drafts on Arena. This is like something we're
Yeah.
very used to the 3 loss thing.
Which you
Um,
guys know is non-trivial. Like
it's not.
going 7-2 is also not easy, but it's a
Hmm.
world of difference from 7-1. Like
Yeah,
there was no worse feeling than losing one of the early rounds, because
and
then you're
being
just
like,
like, oh man, what are the odds? Now I have to rattle off like 5-0.
yeah, which is just nuts. And it was something that was a barrier for me as someone who I was saying this before we did the show, but like I work on the weekends, so like if I want to be part of these events, I actually have to take work off to try to do them, which is really big ask. You know, most people work during the week, so that makes more sense, and it's like their free time. This is literally my like the days I make money, so like can I feasibly decide that that's okay to do? It's very difficult for me to actually do these types of things. So um, this makes me more optimistic if there's like a there's something I really want to just push for, like I'm very gung ho about. I feel a little bit better about actually qualifying for it because that's after the play-in.
Yeah,
Obviously, this is just the weekend, and
right.
then when you get to day two, before you had to get 7 wins to get into the arena championship, and you get a pro tour invite, and then 6 or fewer, you just don't. Like there's like a weird leaderboard thing, but like it's not really clean cut. Now, if you get 6 wins, you get into the arena championship, and then the pro tour invites have been moved into the actual arena championship, which I think is a pretty good change.
Yeah,
Um, just because this weekend is only about getting to the arena championship, you're playing on arena. I think that all makes sense. Um, but you get invited to the next month's qualifier weekend for day one if you go 1 to 3 wins, which is just making day two basically at all. I guess you have to get 1 win to do that. And then you're
yeah.
invited to next month's qualifier weekend, day two, if you get 4 or 5 wins. So if you get
That's
four or
huge.
five and you miss the six to the arena championship, that's okay. You get to jump to day two next month. That's the gravy train, baby. You just stay on it, you know? You just get to keep working and keep working, and that's what we like to see. So
Yeah,
I it makes me so much more interested in this because you're right. Before it felt so much like a lottery, and now it feels like you can actually kind of grind your way up there, which is the point.
yeah. Like if I'd gotten a day two entry for getting the 5 wins last time, like I wouldn't have even been that bummed. I would have been psyched.
Hmm. Yeah, it's like
Yeah, now it's less demanding of me. Like it feels so much more possible to
mhm.
go 7-1 once than to do it like 3 times.
Yeah, which is yeah, so much better. Um, the other big change is that the Arena Championship used to be 32 players. They had two Magic World Championship invites. Now it's changing to the number of players is uncapped. So the instead of the tournament being really small with 32 players, it can be as many players are qualifying. And then there are the top 16 get qualified for the Pro Tour, and then same the finalists get invited to the Magic World Championship, which is
Yeah.
great. I like this. It makes me excited to watch more of the arena championships. Before it wasn't just like having small tournaments is less fun to watch in the sense that most of the time the decks are so metagamed that like they're not really usable.
Yeah.
And in a larger tournament, the decks are more usable for the general audience, which I think is that's mainly why I'm watching is because I want to see which decks I want to play. So I'm happy with this change.
Yeah. Basically what they've done is they've made the Arena Championship a virtual pro tour,
Hmm.
which is what I think it should be.
Yeah,
It's awesome.
totally.
Like you can play the pro tour, but you don't actually have to go travel to a new place, get the
Hmm.
physical cards. Like if you just think of
All
it
of
that
that.
way, then it makes sense that you just qualify for the Arena Championship from this thing. For people who were hoping to qualify for the Pro Tour online, just think of this as a Pro Tour. It just
Yeah,
is a Pro Tour now. It has a big prize pool. If you do well enough, you get to qualify for the next Pro Tour. Like that one's
yeah.
in paper, I guess. But um,
It's either that or
yeah,
you get to the World Championship, which is the whole point of the Pro Tour anyway, because that's what the Pro Tour
yeah,
does. So,
yeah. It's
like,
just like a virtual Pro Tour now with
mhm,
a few hundred players. It's going to be less like you said, a less sort of inbred metagame.
mhm.
And I think looking back, that was kind of where the Magic Pro system kind of failed was there were too
Small.
few players
Yeah.
and so many of them were teamed up with each other. There were
Hmm.
really like 3 teams.
Hmm.
So there were like 3 decks, you know, and uh and then some stragglers who clearly didn't know what was going on. And then
Ben
it was
Stark.
just yeah, the mono red
Yeah.
every time. And it just is more bigger tournaments are just more fun
Hmm.
to watch, even though like I think where they were going with it was you'd get to track your favorite players more often because there's fewer players and stuff. But the problem is
It.
exactly what you called out that like people are less interested in tracking their favorite players and more interested in tracking a deck they like
Hmm.
or that they would actually play themselves,
Hmm.
like not some weird deck that was built to metagame against what Channel Fireball is going to bring.
Yeah,
Like,
because the thing, this is kind of a conversation that was getting a little bit larger than I wanted, but the thing about Magic is that like everyone can play it. Obviously, there's different calibers of players, but it's not this. It doesn't feel the same difference as like me versus Patrick Mahomes, right? So
yeah.
like I can't just become a football player in just randomly. Like that's taken it's his entire life and like years of coaching and everybody and his talent as well and all that type of stuff and like magic involved. Um, but when you're watching like a magic tournament, most of the time you're like, oh, they do plays I do, or I can learn from them and do similar plays and learn how to be a
Right.
better magic player. I don't watch football to learn how to be a better football player because it's impossible because like I'm too
Yeah.
old.
It's too late for you,
It's
Zach. I
it's
hate
done.
to break it to you, but
Yeah, it's just over.
uh,
Magic is not that way. So,
another way to think about it is like it's conceivable, it's unlikely, but it's conceivable that if I sit down at a table against Luis Scott Vargas, I could beat him.
mhm.
That's
Because
possible.
he could get mana screwed. That's
Yeah,
always
anything
possible.
could happen.
Hmm.
I might beat him.
Hmm.
If I'm up against Patrick Mahomes in any football related
Anything.
competition, I will lose 100% of the time. I will
Yes.
literally never beat him.
There's no way.
Or like chess is similar. If I sit up against a grandmaster, I will never win. We could play 100 games, they could have like 1 minute on the clock, and I could have an hour, and they would still whoop my ass every single time. So Magic does promise that like part of the frustrating thing about Magic is you can always lose. There's
Hmm.
you can never get a 100% win rate. And so sometimes that manifests as mana screwed and like I just didn't get to play that game. But it also means that nobody's going to beat you every time either. You're
Hmm.
not going to lose every game either.
Yeah,
And that's pretty cool, but it also makes some people not realize how good the pros are.
exactly. So like I was literally saying right now,
Yeah.
not so much, but basically Magic still lets you dream that there's a possibility that you could get there, and so the more opportunities that you have a chance to actually act on those like urges that you have, the better. And this is directly related. Like William Huey Jensen is making these changes directly after he had to be in the whole closed setting with the league weekends and all that kind of stuff because that was torture for almost everybody except for
Yeah.
Javier Dominguez. Javier Dominguez thought it was a lot of fun, but everybody else hated it. Um,
Just having a blast. Yeah,
he's
man.
like, that was great. It was like the best Magic I ever played. I thought it was really fun. Um, okay, okay.
He also did pretty well, so
He did. I mean, like, he's a world championship. Like,
yeah,
what are you gonna do?
he's a good player.
All right. The other Magic news that we have, besides competitive play, is that Outlaws of Thunder Junction, the debut video is coming out next week. We're getting spoilers like next Tuesday, very, very soon.
More
This
spoilers.
more
Spoiler
spoilers.
season.
Yeah, spoiler season is starting, and then we're getting right into it. Pre-release, all that stuff. And whew, it's been a really quick turnaround, like we mentioned earlier in the episode. Like the the murders are over. I'm kind of sad. I feel like there are some things I still wanted to do with the set. I play a lot of Magic, and I feel like there are some things I still wanted to do that I haven't gotten to yet. So
Well, that's good because you've been drafting this format a lot.
I have been, yeah. Um, I mean, like I've been drafting it a lot. I've been getting more into constructed actually, which is part of the thing that I'm thinking more so of like what I'm missing.
Gotcha.
Um, that I haven't been able to do is mainly constructed, but limited has been awesome. Like this set, I think was great. There was a very popular person, a famous man, talking about there's a huge rant about how it's way too fast, and if you win the coin flip, you win the game, and everyone's playing Boros and blah 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 blah. Yeah, I mean, like, white is the best color, and it is very contested. Like, almost like more contested than sets in the past. Where like going into white could be detrimental because even if you have like a great pack one pick one white card, it's just going to dry up. Like, it's going to be really hard to get the pieces you want. All the other decks were also really interesting and awesome. Like, most of the trophies I had from the set were like a bunch of different random decks. Like, yeah, of course I had a Boros one in draft, but like besides that, there are so many cool things to do. Like, this set this set was awesome. Like, I could still continue to play it, and there's a lot of play to it. Um,
Yeah.
I think it's really sweet.
If you watch the Pro Tour in the draft, they followed Jean-Emilion Duprat, and he was saying when they asked him about the format that basically everyone's wrong that this is a fast format. He
Hmm.
actually plays it like he thinks it's a very slow format, or he corrected himself and says it's a format that you can do whatever you want. You
Hmm.
just have to understand how the fast decks work and how the slow decks work. And so he was saying, so he ends up always playing a slow deck because everyone else is fighting for the fast decks.
Hmm.
But he was saying people are just wrong that you have to be fast in this format.
Yeah,
You just don't have to.
I've
And
lost.
he did pretty well in that tournament.
He
So
did.
I think he
Yeah.
probably knows his stuff.
I mean, like, I have lost a lot of decks that I thought were fast, or I forced fast decks,
Yeah.
and like you just can't force it. That's the biggest thing. Like, this this draft format very much is like a lot of draft formats, but like learn your seat, and
Right.
you can build a lot of cool decks. The fact that Insidious Roots was actually a real card you could play that
Love
had a
it.
real deck and it was like backbreaking when it happened. That was like Chalk Outline actually ended up being a card you could play.
Oh yeah.
Like, I obviously your deck is a lot slower. There's a lot of cards you have to prioritize to make sure you don't get run over. But a lot of those good two drops, or like the two drops that the aggressive decks can get, are 2/1s. Like a Vitu-Ghazi Inspector on two blocks them for a couple turns, you know, or
Yeah.
they have to like instead of attacking and playing another two drop, I have to like attack and use a combat trick to kill this stupid thing that slows me down, that I you gain more life that way, all that kind of stuff. Like, I think that the green black decks were really interesting and like fun to go into, especially because like Azoni was a card that you could play that is really busted and
Super
is
busted.
really good.
You know
Um,
what's even better than a Zoni though?
three Azonis.
Three Azonies.
That's a joke from when I ran into somebody on stream that had three Azonis. Anyway, get
Somehow you
trash, man.
managed to fight through two of them, but the third one gotcha.
The second one they just threw away because they were looking for the third one. I knew it.
Yeah. Yeah, when they did that, you're like, something's
You're
up.
like, something's wrong. They sacrificed all their spiders to look for cards on the top of their deck. That's not right.
Yeah.
Ugh.
But yeah, I mean, I think what you're touching on is basically part of the problem of people want to build slow decks like they used to. And in the
Mhm.
past, a slow deck meant like nothing, divination, four drop, and then start to take over the game. And it's just that's not acceptable in today's Magic.
Mhm.
And I've heard it referred to as defensive speed. But even the slow decks need to be interacting on turn two and three and four. You cannot play divination
Yeah.
on turn three. And so what you need one threes for two. That's a good
Mhm.
example of
Yeah.
defensive speed. Or
Exactly.
you want to prioritize cheap removal in the slow
Mhm.
deck that's going to win the long game. It's I always talk about it, but that was just like so obvious after Ben Stark said it to me. But I always just thought of it the opposite. Like fast decks want cheap cards, slow decks want expensive cards. But he just explained it like fast decks want cheap removal to stay alive. Or sorry, fast decks want expensive removal to get rid of big blockers to help them punch through in the late
Mhm.
game. And slow decks want cheap removal to help them stay alive so that they can win the lake. Once he said that, I
Exactly.
was like, I've been doing the opposite of that, but that makes perfect sense. Like
Yeah.
that's once you say that, I'm like, that's obviously true. What have I
Yeah.
been doing?
And once you
But
told me that, I started doing that and it's been very helpful.
right, and it's
So,
just like, yeah, you just think fast deck cheap cards, right?
mhm.
But with removal in particular, the paradigm actually flips. You want it to the opposite.
Yeah, and I think that like this is the set like this is the set where I've been drafting Simic a good amount
Oh no.
and it's
I
been
hear you've been
really
playing it in
fun.
constructed too.
I
What's going on over
know.
there?
It's just because like it's Simic is giving me a little bit more of the tempo-y plays that I
Right.
really like from like blue black and like those types of decks.
Like the give your big creature flying kind of thing. Like,
Kind of. Um, but like whenever I first pick a Kellen, it's well, when I open a Kellen in pack one, it's really hard not to pick it
I
because
mean,
the
it's a
times
pretty
when
good card.
it's a pretty good card, and the times when I get to actually do it are just so awesome. And I think that green happened to be open quite a lot in some
Right.
of these packs. And like looking through some of the decks that I played, if you have untapped.gg, if you have a premium account, you can look back and see all the picks that you've made from all the packs. Um, and like, I don't know, I was getting just great cards late in green or in blue. Like, it's just so, it just felt so easy. It just felt like nobody was touching those colors because they're like, oh, this looks like a green blue card. No, I'm just gonna pass it on. And you can make some really busted decks that were awesome. And I think that people didn't respect that color pair um, in the types of things that you can do with all of the different. There's like a lot of detective synergies that you have. Like Loxodon Eavesdropper is huge in that. You always have a butt ton of like clues laying around, so you're always drawing a bunch of cards. I know. It always felt like something that I could go over the top and smash really hard while just continuing to draw a million cards and play more creatures than the white decks because I have Killer Among Us like times three. You know, it's just like
You know what, Zach, we'll let it slide this time. But if it starts to become a pattern, like if we see it in Outlaws, may have to have an intervention. Feels like you're on a slippery slope to playing blue green ramp here.
I just want to say that like I'm not really ramping. Is the thing like we're not really ramping into something huge
What
most
does
of the
Kellen
time.
do?
All right, so Kellen. So the thing is, the first part of Kellen ramps if you have another land in your hand, right? So it incentivizes you to play more lands in your deck, which is a good thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Your 41st card can be your 18th land. That's
Oh dear
basically
God, I hate that statement so much.
right.
Kellen lets you ramp into that 41st the 41st card you put in your deck, which was a
Yeah.
land. Oh dear.
But a lot of Kellen's strength is also just being like a 3/4 vigilance fly that attacks and
Yeah.
lets you draw a card. Um, and so that's the part that's really great is that like you're drawing cards, you're holding up mana for counter spells while you also get to either bounce their thing or play a bigger creature. Um, and that was kind of like the feeling of it as opposed to do nothing, blow up your thing, do nothing, play a giant thing, attack you on turn seven. Or, you know, that's
Yeah.
not the same vibe of what the decks I was building, which also reminds me of drafting like blue red in this set has felt like a breath of fresh air. These two archetypes that I never want to play, like blue red spells, isn't really my favorite. Like I will dive into it a little bit, but it's not always super exciting. But this set it was artifacts and it was so fun. I that was probably like Boros is what I'm hoping to play, but like
Mhm.
Blue Red Spells looks open. Or not Blue Red Spells, sorry, Blue Red Artifacts. Blue Red Artifacts is open? I'm gonna be playing some Blue Red Artifacts. Like that was
Man, yeah.
sick. It
The
was
like satchel is always unreal too.
the satchel is unreal. Gleaming Gear Drake, it just like gets so huge. It's it's the type of thing where like I go into the set thinking that red herring is going to be the biggest piece of crap. Like, barely playable. Like, I don't really know. Like, maybe we
It's a
can.
great name, but other than that,
Yeah, but other than that, like, oh, I've seen this card before. It's pretty shitty. Two, this card is fantastic. I actually want as many as I can get, basically.
yeah,
And that ended up happening where I'm like, yeah, I am. The reason I'm losing this game is because I don't have enough red herrings.
right.
Not that it was the make or break card, but there was a lot of things you could do with it. And the fact that you can either throw it away or draw a card or use the orangutan to sacrifice it to make a 4/4 or
Yeah,
whatever. Having a like a 2 mana 2/2 artifact that attacks on turn two is ended up being super important
yeah.
as a
I
common.
thought it was going to be pretty, like, I knew it was going to be good, or I thought it was going to be good. Turned out to be right,
Hmm.
but I undervalued it. I didn't catch the like how much the artifact or just being a clue actually mattered. I was just thinking like it's a 2/2 haste creature that you can cash in for a card when it becomes irrelevant.
Hmm.
Like that's going to be pretty good.
Yeah. Like most of the
Um,
time it either trades for their card or you draw a card back, basically.
I've had so many games where I take like 6 damage off it and then trade, and I'm just
Yeah.
like, "Fucking
Yeah,
stupid fish."
you just like snap block immediately, basically, is what you
Yeah,
have to do.
it's just yeah. But so in the early days, right, it was always like, no, I don't know. My creature's better. I don't want to trade with it. And then
Yeah.
you're like, okay, well, this I can't just take two every turn from this stupid fish.
Hmm.
And I love like it's a downside that it has to attack all the time, but sometimes it's so nice when you just like, well, I have to attack with this. Do I
Hmm.
have a combat trick? Am I
That
attacking my 2/2 into your
and
3/3?
I think
Or
that's a huge thing as well because like the two red combat tricks are like Felonious Rage and the Chase is on. And
yeah,
both of those you feel like a big dummy blocking, You're
right.
like, well, if they have one red open, I don't want to block this
Yeah.
because then we trade and they get a 2/2 afterwards. Like
Right. Like they get to
that's
upgrade their creature and kill mine.
to a
Like,
blocker. Like they
yeah.
that sucks. Like
Yeah.
I don't want that. And and so
But
like
I get no signal. Like if an opponent attacks a 2/2 into my 3/3,
mhm,
there's so much signal that just happened, and I've suddenly narrow it down to like either they're
exactly.
bluffing,
Hmm.
if we're at that level where they also know that it could only really be one card and they know that I'm going to pick against that card and they're bluffing,
Hmm.
whatever. But generally on Arena, I'm
That's
not
not
playing at a high enough level for that to be happening. So
exactly.
it's really just they have this card
Hmm.
or one of these two cards.
Yeah.
And now it's just like they have to attack. Like
Like
they could have nothing or they have the card, don't they? They have the
mhm.
card. They have it.
Yeah.
They have
And
it. I
that's
know they have it.
yeah. I think that's the other thing that like we were talking about immediately before this. We were playing Cons of Tarkir, and they have the same Valley Dasher is like
Yeah.
Mardu Valley
It's
Dasher, whatever it's called. I can't remember.
yeah.
Um,
Uh that sounds right. I
something
don't know
like
if
that.
it yeah. Valley Dasher
Um,
version. I think it's just called Valley Dasher.
maybe just Valley Dasher. Anyway,
Yeah.
it just has the same text, but like that wasn't a combat trick format. It
Right.
wasn't
Every
combat
all,
centric.
everything was so expensive in that format.
Yeah. And the biggest combat trick for those colors that was like the oh shit, are they gonna do it? Is a sorcery that you have to play
Right.
before you attack. And so like you don't have the same, oh, are they gonna get me or not type of thing. And this set was so like combat trick centric that the Boros deck was strong because the combat tricks were so strong because they weren't using removal as much. It's like auspicious arrival letting you get it
Oh,
investigate after
Auspicious
+2
Arrival is so
+2.
good.
You get to draw a card after your combat trick, which is the huge downside of like, yeah, I dealt 2 extra damage. Basically, I played 2 mana for a shock. Tends to be the what happens a lot of the time, or
Yeah.
whatever. But the fact that your combat tricks are drawing you cards, all those types of things ended up building up into the Boros deck wants to play creatures, attack, and then combat tricks are the removal spells. And so having a fish that has to attack hides all that so much. I think that's really understated. So I'm glad that we got to talk about it. The fish, the clue
Great card.
fish.
Great card.
Great card.
Great name. Great card.
Great stuff. Also, did you see? Okay, so there was a whole scavenger hunt with this set. on
Yeah.
Arena. So there's a bunch of little clues happening, and like they're kind of telling a story of what was going on in the Magic story. So if you read the Magic story, it felt very like, yeah, okay, 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 I know.
Right.
But each one of the things you had to guess and go into like the code section in the store to like type in your code, and that was like the your guess for whatever riddle they had. And then you got like 500 experience and like a card style every time that you guessed it right. If you want to know what those are, go into our Discord. I put a bunch of them into the like Magic News area. You might see
Yep.
them on Twitter and stuff too. Anyway, the final thing is that you discover who the murderer is. It's Oba, and then you get a token for the special or totally normal event, which is like a brawl event where they have pre-constructed decks and it's free, and you just get to play for card styles and all this stuff. It's a lot of fun. It was kind of jokey and funny, but
Sure.
if you're reading the breakdown of that totally normal event, it says something about like, oh wow, like something about like going back and like haven't having records of something since the year that Ravnica City of Guilds came out, dot 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 or something. It was felt very obvious that you have to like go and type in the year that Ravnica City of Guilds came out, which was
Like 2004.
very close. It was 2005. Um,
Ah, I was trying to think of like what age I was when that came out, which I will not reveal.
yeah, don't.
But
But anyway, so you go in and type 2005 into the search bar to get your special. Oh, maybe there's more to the story than I thought. And then they give you the special red herring thing. And it
oh, they
literally
give you
popped
the
the
like
like
not the alternate,
the shadow box thing
shadow boxer
of
for
red
red
herring.
herring.
Yeah.
That's
And it
great.
was really funny. And it
Yeah.
was just like,
You're like, I found the secret clue at
oh,
the
that's
end
so
of all
cool.
the secret
And they
clues.
told me that was the last clue, but there was another one. I found it. And then it ended up being a red herring. It was pretty
Love
funny.
it. Yeah, that's
Um,
great.
so I
That's the
liked it.
best way to introduce that
Yeah.
alternate card for
Right?
sure.
So I like that they're having a lot of fun with it, and I think Magic players enjoyed it as well. So that was a huge plus for me for the just the whole set being like murder mystery. There's a bunch of mysteries and stuff, and there's a secret story that came out, and all those kinds of
Yeah,
things.
that's a good segue to just talk about like this was our first set of this new idea that they have of doing a smaller thing within the bigger world.
Yeah,
Like, how did that go? I think overall, it seems like it went pretty well. I remember being like a little, there was a little part of me at the start that's like, we just put like a hat on everyone and now they're a detective. Like,
I thought you were going to say we are now in the time of hats on people dot set
right,
because
right.
we're going from like the detective hat, the fedoras, moving into the cowboy hat set. So like
Yeah.
we are now in hat world. Um,
And
but
I think
yeah,
if you didn't read the story, it would be so weird that just every creature is randomly a detective.
hmm
The story does clarify that a little bit, but it still felt maybe a bit heavy-handed that like everything I liked that a lot of the set was clues. That makes sense to
hmm
me from just I look at the cards and I'm like, oh, this is everything's a clue of so what's going
totally.
on. That's awesome. But just the like every white creature is a detective and it's just like a regular creature with a fedora was always like, all right. And there's like a detective lord in it. It's
Yeah,
like when I read the story, I get like they formed their detective agency or whatever that since
they left the
they
Azorius
do
and all that stuff.
as good a job as you possibly can trying to
hmm
explain that. I think they won't really have to do that in Outlaws because it's just that's what it is. These are outlaws.
hmm
Like you know, you don't have to justify it. But the whole with this being Ravnica and it's just like all of a sudden everybody's a detective. Why did that happen? Um,
Yeah, I I think that to me it's really interesting because this is obviously showing that there is a world beyond just the guilds. And I think that people are
yes.
so used to only seeing guild cards, but like in Ravnica, as far as lore goes, like there's a ton of fucking people that aren't associated to the guilds. They just like live on Ravnica. They're just like
Right.
citizens, right? And people kind of forget that. They think like, oh, everyone's part of one of the guilds, and but there's a ton of guildless characters. So the fact that there are this detective agency that's like branched off from the Azorius that doesn't really follow the Azorius anymore does make sense. And the fact that we get to open up the world into another space, because we've done the guild so many times that I don't know how much more space we have to like dive into. How many times can we remake Convoke cards? You know, like
Yeah,
I'm glad that we were able to try something else. And it didn't bother me nearly as much as I think it bothered a lot of other people. I will say that the fedora is maybe a little much. I like kitschy
yeah.
stuff and it's fun, but there were a few things like how how do you know that this detective is a detective? Oh, well, they have a fedora and they're kind
Or
of
like a magnifying glass,
yeah,
or
or
yeah,
something. But I don't know. It is hard because the other half of me is like a visual representation of the creature type on the art is really helpful when you're playing so that you don't think like,
sure.
oh, this is a detective. Oh, wait, this isn't a detective? Oh, I thought it was. Why wouldn't it not be a detective? I don't understand. Can be feel bad at some point. Um,
Yeah, there, but that's just Magic. There's always gotchas and limited of like,
that's true.
this card doesn't fly. Are you kidding me? Look at the art.
That card has reach? What are you talking
Yeah.
about?
Yeah, that's
Stuff
the
like
big
that.
one.
Yeah,
It's
that's the
like
big one.
a dude with a rock or something. You're like,
Yeah.
oh, he's
It's
holding a
always
rock.
no, but you got to
Oh,
watch out for
yeah.
the red dudes with rocks. The
Yeah,
green
the
ones don't do that, but the red
no,
ones do.
red dudes with rocks probably have reach.
Yeah, definitely.
That's a tip from the arena
Rocks,
regulars.
boulders, there are turrets, anything that's holding like some giant thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, they can throw that in the air.
Sometimes it's like a tree trunk, and I'm like,
Yeah.
what's happening? He's launching the tree trunk into the air.
Inversely, you got to watch out for green cards that have bows but don't have reach. That is
Yeah,
an issue
that's
as
always
well.
confusing. Yep, yep, yep.
You're
They're
like,
just they're
don't
archers,
worry.
but they're bad. Like
Yeah,
they can.
they're really bad archers.
Yeah.
They have the arrow, they just don't have the string for the bow.
Yeah. They
So,
slash with it.
no, just
Yeah.
throw it into the
Throw
air.
it. Yeah.
Oh,
Sometimes
God.
it's just like a kind of big creature.
Yeah,
Reach.
reach. Yeah. It's as tall as a tree. Yes, has reach.
Yeah.
Um, just, anyway, red getting sneaky reach. There's always, I think that's part of the template that they just made for like the play boosters, whatever. Red creature with sneaky reach is like
Yeah.
it's just new. Like
They need to have at least one sneaky reach red creature. That's always like a 4 mana 3/3 or something.
exactly. Well, we're looking at you, gear bang orangutan, you sneaky reacher. God.
That'll
Anyway.
always get me. And Arena's the best for it because if they have no blocks, it'll just go right through to damage.
Hmm.
But as soon as it starts to like
Stop. You're
attacks and
like,
it gives your opponent some time, you're like, uh-oh,
fuck.
sneaky reach.
Oh
And then you're
fuck, they
like,
played
no,
the orangutan.
it's just like they have a treasure token.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, okay. Whew. Or
Oh my
like
God.
a clue is just sitting there. You're like,
Yeah.
God, jeez.
Arena don't scare me like that.
So scary. Um God, but anyway, yeah, as far as like constructed formats go, how do we feel the set like how did it do? Did it crack through?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, won a pro tour.
It did win a
It's
pro tour.
get more on that later.
Hmm.
Um, it introduced a new deck into standard. Like I think this whole
Hmm.
bring all of your lands back with Nissa and stuff
Hmm.
is real. And
It's a real deck. They brought that. It like added pieces to Boros Convoke, which is already a deck happening.
yep, yep.
Um, but like really helped by getting the addition of Novice Inspector was huge to that deck. So you
Hmm.
have both Novice Inspector and Voldaren Epicure.
Yeah.
Um,
Novice Inspector's like the second best card in that deck. Oh,
yeah, I mean it. The rest of the cards are kind of shitty, so like,
yeah. It's like, what do you expect?
what do you expect?
It's just full of when you're
Trash.
comparing it to Voldaren Epicure.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. Voldaren Epicure might be my pick as like worst card that has been a significant part of the most good archetypes. Like
Mhm.
very few cards are that bad, but also a big part of a bunch of different really powerful archetypes. You're just
Yeah.
like, huh, maybe the card doesn't suck as much as it seems like it does. but it
Yeah.
always seems terrible.
Well, you know, like
And this is someone who's played a ton of it. Like,
the card that has felt like that to me is Rebel Belt Maverick, which is the green one that like is a one mana just surveil two. But having like a surveil two on turn one feels so good.
yeah,
Like
that card's just like pretty decent. I would say it's the opposite. That card's like pretty decent and is in terrible archetypes.
yeah, yeah, that's more so what it is. Is that like it's like exactly what you want to see on turn one in the deck that like if you don't have it on turn one, it's pretty shitty. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
but like that card has like outperformed so much.
Yeah,
I,
I think people undervalued Surveil too.
yes.
On People always undervalue Surveil because they have this idea that it's like Scry, but it's
Hmm.
much better than Scry.
It is so much better than Scry. Though I do have to remind myself, is this a Scry or is this Surveil? Because like
Right.
when I look at the card, I'm like, oh, I don't want this right now, but I want it later. I was like, don't put
That
it in the yard then.
Yeah, that's not
Like,
how it
okay.
works. You
I'll put it
either
on the
draw
board
it or you get
or
rid of it.
you get rid of it. Um,
Yeah, there are weird decks or scenarios where Scry is better, but for the most part, Surveil is much
yeah.
better.
I think literally the deck that like Surveil or Scry is better is like Lotus Field combo and Pioneer
Right,
because
combo decks. Yeah.
you want to keep all the pieces in your deck because you're tutoring. But
No,
besides that,
combo decks that don't use the graveyard
yeah.
is where Scry matters.
But anyway, yeah, I think this set, I think it was great. Honestly, I'm really sad to see it go. There's so many things I still wanted to do. Like, I even haven't even like built a deck with Delny yet. Like, that was a thing that was really
Oh man, I've
exciting.
built several Delny decks.
Okay, well, I just need
They all
somebody to do
suffer
it.
from the same problem of they're so bad without Delny,
Ah, yes.
and Delny's very easy to remove. But
What are you
when you
talking? Is it
do,
3 mana 2/2? What are you talking about?
yeah, who came ready for that?
That's the cut
But
down.
they're all they keep you like they always just when you're about to give up on it, they rope you back in because you'll have a game where they don't kill Delny,
Hmm.
and you're like, oh, you're so
Oh,
fucked.
yeah.
Like just check out what's about to happen. Like my blood
Oh,
artist triggers are going crazy. Like yeah, there's
that's
always something.
that
Or you
sounds.
play like brutal Cathar and you're like, is all that and that.
Hmm.
And like
That just sounds. That sounds like so much fun.
blood
I was
artist triggers
waiting.
are doubling and you're sacking your 1/1 that dies into now two 1/1s, and that's
Yeah,
double blood artist triggers, and you sack both those 1/1s for double blood artist, and you're just like, I don't know what you were thinking not killing my Delny. Your
that sounds
opponent was
great.
yeah, I know. And it every fifth, sixth game or so, after getting beaten to crap every other game, that happens, and you're like, yes, I knew this
Yes.
deck was legit.
Oh God. I think that like the thing was that Delny was on my like no pass list for so long, and there's a certain point where you hit where you're like, do I just start playing it constructed and craft them, or do I keep going? And I just kept going trying to get them, and I just couldn't find
Yeah.
them, and I think that's what pushed me forever into the
I found a few of them just like right away, and then I was like, you know what? I'll just build the deck and I'll craft the other two
well,
I need or
yeah.
whatever.
Once you get two, you're like, well, two wild cards isn't that much.
Exactly. I just feel so different.
Yeah.
Um, but we had some fun brewing in our channel of
Oh,
some
we
of our
had some great brewing in Discord.
just posting like the idea was basically just black white value cards that happen to work with Delny. And I think that's probably the direction you have to go.
I was gonna say that's the one that seemed most exciting to me.
And then
Um,
maybe post rotation, where when those cards are like just like little more powerful on the balance.
mhm,
Um, but stuff like Preacher of the Schism
mhm.
just happens to be a card with a trigger every turn
Yeah, that's a two
that will
four.
get doubled by Delny, but also it's
Mm-hmm.
just a pretty good card. So I think that's the way you want to do it. If your opponent's ever at the same life total as you and you attack with that and have a Delny,
Double
oof,
draw, double
that's the
token.
dream. That's the
Oh,
dream. Um, but yeah, I was playing too many weak cards that were only good if you had Delny, which was the
gotcha.
consistent problem.
Yeah.
Um,
I
But
mean, hey,
playing bat and getting to exile 2 cards is always nice. But
oh, that's disgusting. I
you're
hate
like,
that.
hey, opponent, do you have 3 removal spells in your hand?
Yeah,
Because if not,
yeah. Jeez. I was literally playing a deck today on stream that had like Doorkeeper Thrall, and all I was doing was like wanting to make sure that they couldn't bat me. And so like they put bat on the stack. I play Doorkeeper Thrall. They put a
nice.
counter spell. I put another Doorkeeper Thrall on this stack to be like, you are not taking anything from my
No
hand.
bats. Now my whole hand was doorkeeper thralls,
Yeah,
so your bat
so
wouldn't have been relevant anyways, really.
doesn't really matter. But yeah, freaking that does say like Doorkeeper Thrall did not do as many fun things as I wanted. Sometimes people run their bats right into it, and that's fun. But for the most part, it there aren't as many just ETB triggers as I was thinking. There's a lot of just like attack triggers or random other triggers that are just
Yeah, there's a lot of value creatures, but I think Wizards has done a pretty good job recently of
of like
making these value creatures that aren't all about the ETB.
yeah, which is good because then it just
Like
goes into
even
like
Shieldred, right? Like
yeah, it doesn't even
it doesn't have an ETB, so you still
mm-hmm,
have a nice window to kill it and get away scot-free,
mm-hmm,
but it is still just a value generating creature that
totally.
you're not that ups. Usually, it's hard to come ahead on the exchange because probably they've gained 2 life or you've lost 2 life at least. But
Yeah.
so they've done a really good job of pushing that because it used to be if a creature doesn't have an ETB, you can't play it because
Mm-hmm.
that's the only way you accrue value from creatures.
Yeah.
And
Because all the other things are like attacks, and then they changed it to like ETB and attacks, and like
right,
just all kind of came downhill. So I think this new direction that we're going in Magic is a very fun one, and I think that this set in general, not just with the limited, but just kind of everything, has been able to hit on some good marks of like we can see as we're moving towards like oh every card kind of has its place, which is really nice,
yeah,
and is what you want in these types of sets where you don't have just kind of we were talking about this last week, but just like random bullshit cards that suck. Like
right.
beside, well, I guess no, they all have their own place. Maybe it's not limited, but as I look at cards and being like, oh, this card fucking sucked. Oh, that's because it sucked in limited, but it was good and constructed and all this stuff. So,
Right.
but yeah, with that being said, Jeff, should we get into our worthless slots and see how we did?
Let's do
Because
it.
I think it's probably time.
I love this.
Yeah.
Holding ourselves accountable, my favorite part.
So we are going back and looking at our first Sips episode, which was a few weeks back. When the set first came out, we had 3 different cards we thought were worth a slot in your deck. Jeff, can you explain our ranking system?
Yes, our ranking system is based on a sport known as basketball. You've
Hmm.
heard of that. Um, and so it comes in 3 tiers. First one is a layup. This is something that you should hit pretty much every time. A 3-pointer, it's a little tougher. It's something that it definitely could go in, but if it doesn't, not that surprised. And then a half court shot is something that is probably not going to go in.
Yes. We also have a couple overrated and underrated cards starting from the beginning of the set, and we'll see how they end up here at the end. Um, let's get started. I'll go first. So my layup was an uncommon card. This was the layup of the layups, and
Yeah,
that's how I like to do them. You know, something that like doesn't cost you very much in arena, uncommon card, and is going to be everywhere. No more lies. This is the card you think about when you're about to cast a spell. Now,
yeah.
like
And like single-handedly propelled Blue-A Control into a tier 1 deck in standard.
yes,
Um, I can't remember a layup that was quite as easy as this since the Wandering Emperor, when we were just like, well, yeah,
yeah,
which, funny enough, turned out to be the second best card in that set, but
yeah,
was pretty sure it was the best card. Um, yeah, that was a good pick,
super
and
good.
it has materialized already.
Yeah.
and it's being played in formats beyond standard as well. It's
Yeah,
just it's,
it's
they
everywhere.
gave us better Mana League. Like
Hmm.
it's a good card.
It's a really good card with mana cost being fairly trivial these days. Better mana leak is great.
Yeah, exactly. It's not strictly better because it is harder to cast,
Hmm.
but I mean most decks that played Mana League, I guess it's like Mana League that blue red decks can't play. So in that sense,
Hmm.
it's nice.
Yeah, but Esper decks can play. Ugh.
Uh, I don't know.
Oh well.
Can't win them all.
Jeff, what was your layup?
I picked War Leader's Call.
Hmm.
Um, so this is the what's it called? Impact Tremors meets Glorious Anthem.
Hmm.
I would say this is a great card and is played in the deck that, the reason I added it was I think the red white deck was going to be more prominent. That has happened. The red white deck's a good deck in standard now. This card is less important in that deck than I think I thought it would be. Like,
Hmm.
I don't think that deck necessarily needs this card, but it'll usually play a couple of copies. Um, that deck is actually surprisingly deep. It has a lot of options, and so
Hmm.
I think this card sometimes gets the cut over to just more one drops that you can play and stuff like that. But it's sort of half materialized, I would say. It's like
Yeah, I think that this card definitely looked like a layup. Um, was surprised when Case of the Getaway Express kind of took its place
right.
in the Boros Convoke deck
I think
because you're
just being a mana cheaper is such a big deal.
being one mana cheaper, only one color, and
Yeah,
being able to kill a creature, like take away
right.
blockers, and then also become an anthem the next turn.
And the deck is so tight, like there's so few flex slots that it's
Hmm.
hard to get removal into the deck. And so
Yeah, and so
you
being
just
like,
value that removal over the extra. You don't really need the extra reach that much of the impact tremors effect
mhm,
because when you get the wide board, you can always find a way to kill them with
yes, with
uh,
the other cards you have. But I do think
Dane's recruiter or whatever.
Imitator's Recruiter, yeah. I did actually play a version of this deck though that was like all the low end of the Convoke deck, but none of the Convoke stuff. So
Mm,
it was like uh all the one drops. So it was Novice Inspector, um, Voldarian Epicure, and the Demolition thing that makes all the one ones. And then you kind of skip to War Leader's Call, and then you go into like more controlling packages. You have like all the wedding announcement and like Wandering Emperor and things like that.
right.
And so the point of the deck was like you start out kind of fast and you know that they're going to wipe the board or do something. And then all you're trying to do is like play War Leader's Call and like blow up your artifacts to make a bunch of one ones and like kill them with the War Leader's Call at the end, which is kind of interesting. It didn't end up being as good, I think, but it had a War Leader's Call was much more important in that deck as
Right.
opposed to the
And that could
Convoke
be
one
something you like side into against blue white control or
or
something where
something.
your plan A is not
Pretty bad,
reliable.
yeah.
Yeah. So this could still have a place. But or maybe even I was thinking like post rotation when some of these
Hmm.
other cards are gone. Like we're talking, there's only so much room for 3 mana enchantments. So even in that version, if you want
Hmm.
Wedding Announcement, which is tried and true kind of
Yeah.
all star. So we'll see. Maybe once that stuff rotates out, there'll be a little more room for it. But it's still a great card, man. Impact Tremors stapled to Glorious Anthem for the same price as Glorious Anthem is
Yeah.
it's quite the card. So
I'm just
I
gonna
still have hope that this will materialize more, but I was expecting it to have a bigger sort of
be like a home run
out the
slam dunk.
gate interaction. Yeah.
Yeah, and it ended up not fully getting there, but I still count it as like a yeah, this is a great card. You will not feel bad crafting this card. Like,
Yeah, and people still play it, but I expected it to be like kind of a pillar of this deck and what propelled it. But
mhm.
actually, like you're saying, that case and
Case of the Getaway
more
Express, yeah,
Thraben Inspector than anything actually
yeah,
is what
brought
gave
it
this
down.
deck the extra legs it needed.
Juice. Yeah, and they're playing some other pieces I wasn't thinking they were going to be playing that like ended up giving it more reach in a different way. Like
Right.
the 1 mana 1/2 from Lost Caverns of Ixalan that like you tap 3 creatures or artifacts and it gets a +1/+1 counter and you
Yeah.
scry. That card ended up being the one that was something that I was like, oh, I thought that would be too slow or weird, but it ended up being the reach that you needed to like,
Oh,
oh, I'm not actually,
that card's great
I'm
with
like,
this
I'm not
deck.
going to attack you for a couple turns and then you won't be able to stop me. That
Yeah.
ended up being like, ugh.
It's such a good way to give some of your creatures haste too, because you like play them and then you tap them to put a counter on this, and then you attack. And you're just
Hmm.
like, ugh. It
Yeah,
feels
it's
like
just
you
like,
shouldn't be allowed to do that.
yeah, and there's all these like random trinkety tokens running around, all these artifacts, and they're like, oh, that actually makes your creatures bigger. Oh, sick. Okay, cool.
Yeah. So it's the like tap my artifacts, put a counter on this, and then blow up one of my artifacts, make 3/1/1s, tap them to put a counter on
Yeah,
this.
you're like,
It's like you're scrying too. Get out of
what the fuck? Get out of here.
here. Now it
And you're,
flies. Why does it fly now?
yeah, and now it like still attacks for 4 or 5. Hell,
Yeah.
hell to pay. I'm
That
mad.
card might be the best card in the deck, actually.
It's really good. It ends up being the one that I have to kill the most
Yeah.
because the actual convoke creature is like fine, but it's a 4/4 afterwards. So it's just like, oh, you drew cards, and that's great. But
Yeah. That's the card that like my opponent will play it just on turn one or whatever and just leave it. And I have
mhm.
torch the tower and I'm like, I think you just fucked up because
Oh,
you should be playing that when I cannot
you
when
can't
it's
kill it,
more
yeah.
awkward for me. And maybe you didn't have another one drop. I think you might have still should have held it.
That's the
Yeah.
situation where it's like you should have mulliganed probably. It's like I can't play this on turn
True.
one.
Yeah.
Like I need to play this on turn 4 or whatever.
Yeah. You want to play
Um,
that and immediately put a counter on it.
yes, yeah, or 2 or
Yeah.
3,
Right.
right? Um, so that's just kind of learning the deck. But anyway, our let's go to our 3 pointers.
Cool.
Um, I'll start with mine because, well, let's just keep the train where we're going. I chose Kellen, Inquisitive Prodigy. Now, we talked about Kellen a little bit more in Limited, and that's the first time I really had played with him, and he is so strong in Limited. I tried building a
Yeah.
deck around this in Standard, and doing leading into my Simic kind of new new Simic life that's
Oh
not
my
really
gosh.
rampy, but just
I
like
hate
that
that
that deck.
sentence.
Well, I
New
mean,
Simic life.
the deck ended at Kellen. Like it was like 4 drop was the highest you're gonna
This is
go.
how they get you. That's all I'm saying. That's how they get you.
All right. Well, in any case, Kellen being the center of our deck didn't pan out super well. Um, we had like this kind of green blue artifacty build where like we were trying to get Kellen turn 2, like adventure Kellen every single turn or every single game. Um, but it just was never enough really, and you needed something else to push us over the edge. And
Yeah.
Kellen is being played like as a one of in the land deck we were talking about with Nissa and all that. I think that's closer to where he stands. It'll be interesting past rotation to see what happens with him. I still think he's really powerful,
It-
but yeah, he just not a great build around currently, and probably didn't really get there. Was not a great 3 pointer.
I think it's a great like example of a three-pointer though. Like it's a powerful card. It's just four drops asking a lot, especially in 3-year standard. And
Yeah.
this card's not really targeted at older formats. So if it's
Hmm.
going to get the job done, it has to be in standard. Um, and so it's not that bad. Like it is seeing play in a deck, just probably not as much as you were thinking it could.
I was thinking that it might be able to be its own deck, and it's like
Right.
very much not. No, 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 no. It
Yeah.
like it is a card in that deck that's being played in standard, and I side it out every chance I get. So,
It sounds like because basically what that is like adding the first copy of a card is very valuable if that
hmm,
card provides like something your
something.
deck doesn't have otherwise. Um, but those are usually the prime candidates for siding out to bring in the thing you know. Like it's generically good, decent against everything, but it's not amazing against anything. So it's the thing that you side out to bring in the thing that is amazing against what your opponent's doing.
Yeah. Because basically the deck that it's in is in the we talked about this deck last week, but it's like the um Nissa Aftermath Analyst deck where you play all of like the New Capenna sack lands. They come into play, they sacrifice themselves, get another land, blah 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 blah. In combination with Nissa, if you play Nissa on turn 4 and then play a sack land, it lets you go search for an elf or a shaman or an elemental. That's what it is.
Elementally, yeah.
Um, and you can either get in the deck, it's either another Nissa or you get Aftermath Analyst. You're hoping to get Aftermath Analyst because you just made 2 mana to play the Aftermath Analyst.
Right.
In the case that you don't get an Aftermath Analyst, the 2 mana that you make can be played with the Kellen to play a second land from your hand to
Right.
continue a train. So, or if you don't have a sacrifice land, you can use the Kellen ability to play a second land. That's basically what it's for. It's just like an extra land drop if you need one when you don't have a sacrifice land.
Right.
So very replaceable, I'd say, in that deck.
And occasionally a big flyer that
Like,
yeah, that could come
like,
up. But
and blow up artifact. The biggest thing is that like all the important things that are on the battlefield right now are not artifacts. So like
yeah.
you attack and there's nothing to blow up on your opponent's side because there aren't artifacts, which is a worry I had. So you don't kill wedding announcements, you don't kill virtues, you don't kill anything. Maybe like you could kill a every once in a while you get to kill the token from a sunfall and that feels really good. If it's like an 8/8 or something, you're like sick. But besides that, it's like you don't really win that game, right? Like
yeah, exactly.
Anyway, I'll probably say that just kind of flopped. Like didn't do what I wanted, so didn't get there.
All right, let's get to my 3-pointer. So my 3-pointer was a card called Bane Ripper.
Yeah.
This is the Super Blood Artist, the 6-mana, 6/5 flying vampire that does the double Blood Artist trigger and has ward sacrifice a creature. Has this card made an impact in any format?
God, don't fucking do that. Just fucking say we all know. We talked about this earlier. Go on your rant that your card won the Pro Tour.
This card won the Pro Tour. Now I will say that's not what I was expecting when I was talking about this card. I did not think of its impact with Sorin in Pioneer. But I'm gonna take it anyways. It's like
take it.
And like I took the shot and maybe I was aiming to do a backboard off the backboard and in, and then it just swish.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's what I meant to do. But it went in.
But it went in.
Yeah.
God. I knew once I saw that deck, I was like, fuck, is Jeff gonna win a fucking Pro Tour or something? He's gonna be able to gloat about this. It's gonna be like what's her face in the World Championship all over again. The fucking the blue card that gives all your creatures or all your spells flashback, essentially.
Lear,
yeah, it's gonna be like all over again.
That's another great 3-pointer.
Yeah, fucking Jeff.
I think I'm better at 3-pointers than layups, but
you really are, honestly. See, all right. So I'm on the team. I'm the big man who sits down and just like does all the layups, and then when it's being blocked, I can throw it out to you, and you get the layup.
Yeah, but if I'm near the net, I panic.
Yeah,
just
exactly.
chuck it.
Throw it like backward, out of bounds, wherever.
Yeah,
over the backboard.
But I just want to say, Seth, thanks for listening to the show. You heard me talk about Bane Ripper. You were like, you know what? I think this guy's right. Bane Ripper's a great card.
Totally.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Channel Fireball
with that prize money any moment now.
Channel Fireball definitely was listening to our episodes.
Hey man, their research for preparation for a tournament's very thorough. So
that's true. They're
They're
probably
like, what do
just
these drunk guys think?
yeah.
Let's
Let's
check that
listen
out.
to them.
Yeah.
These like this the one podcast in Canada. Weird.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's keep moving on from that because I know I'm gonna hear about this forever, so it's fine.
Yeah.
Um, half court shots. I picked Cryptic Coat. This card's actually kind of did work. This
Yeah.
is
This card's pretty good. I
it
played
is
against this card.
a lot. Like I come into this card a lot. It plays like there a lot of people are playing in like Dimir mid range and stuff like that, or just like random
Yeah.
decks. I wanted it in like a blue red artifacty deck, which I've
Right.
played as well. But in general, like this card is just solid. It's really strong and it's very good against control. Um,
I think that's the thing, right? Like, I find it okay in mid-range mirror matches, which
mhm.
is where people tend to play it. But because it's just so slow.
Yeah,
But against control, it really is like, what am I supposed to do about this thing?
yeah. It's like you can wipe the board. Cool. I'm going to turn the top of my deck into a creature every turn,
Yeah.
and that's where it's really strong. Um,
And the creature's not bad. It's 3/2 unblockable, right? So
yeah.
it's like that's a clock.
And then I can also like attack you with that, return it to my hand, play it
This is where you
again.
need your Kellen to blow this fucking thing up.
Yeah, there you go. That's an artifact to blow up. You just have to like play Kellen and then attack
Yeah.
without them bouncing it to their hand when you target it. But
Yeah.
you know,
I'm sure it'll happen.
hmm I have been able to play against it in limited and win the game without killing the Crypticoat when I had multiple options to kill it. I was like, I think I can kill. I think I'll be fine.
Yeah. I love that.
Which is
Like, I love making that decision because so often I'm just like, couldn't beat it. That was the wrong thing to do. But
yeah, it happens often.
it's
It's
great
like
that it works out.
I think I'll be fine.
Yeah, I can beat this rare.
I can beat this rare. Um, but great card. Honestly, I think we're just going to see this card as like a value card for a while.
Yeah,
Like you'll be like, oh, I guess this deck could use some cryptic codes. Yeah, that's good.
right.
Um,
And to give you some further credit here, this card actually, I've seen it more in Alchemy than in Standard
oh, okay.
because Alchemy is just mid-range value and a lot of Esper.
Hmm.
And like the Esper decks in Standard can't really fit this in. They're just so
Mm-hmm.
tight on their Legends theme, or just they just have
Whatever.
so many great cards. That's why it's usually Dimir that plays it in Standard.
Mm-hmm.
But the Esper decks, because of rotation, the Esper decks in
Alchemy play it.
Alchemy, they don't have Rafine and stuff, so they tend to usually play this. So I
Interesting.
played a lot against this card recently, actually. Um, again, I don't think it's that good against what I'm doing, so I'm pretty happy if they
Well,
play
you
it.
have a braids and whatever, so
Yep, I have a braids. I
mhm.
have like I'm usually the deck that's on the front foot in the matchup and can also grind with them, so I like my matchup there. Like I'm not afraid of an unblockable 3/2 because
Mhm.
I'm attacking. Um, so this card's not great against me in particular, but the fact that all of these decks is sort of most of them have chosen it as a just a value 3 drop to play in your Esper mid-range deck is interesting because a lot of the good stuff like Rafine is gone.
Mhm.
So once rotation happens in standard, you might see like the Dimir deck might become more prominent and this type
Totally.
of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely looking back, this card almost felt more like closer to like a 3 pointer as far as like power level. But originally, I was just so worried that it was going to be so underpowered and that my
Right.
focus was so unlimited that this card was just only a limited card.
And you were thinking about it in like a different context, right? Like, oh, in an
Yeah.
artifacts deck kind of thing. It's like when I picked Atraxa, but I was thinking like Reanimator kind of
hmm
stuff or like five
Which
color, like whatever.
they did play like Reanimator for a while, but it felt like
But
like a
that deck wasn't that good, right? So that was like
yes,
where
where the
the half
disconnect.
court shot was kind of coming
Mhm.
in on that.
Well, that's a great segue to your half court shot this time because it has
Excellent
similar
choice. Yeah.
qualities to that. Yeah.
I selected Niv Mizzet Guild Pact. If you don't remember this card or know what it does, don't worry, neither do I.
hmm
Um, this obviously was a miss, but I knew it was missing when I picked it. I just like thought it was fun.
Yeah. Yeah. It's also a miss in limited. Don't pick this card either.
Oh yeah,
Um,
Niv Mizzets are like classically bad. Well, except the one from Fields of Ravnica.
except for the one that just like like every time you draw a card, you deal one
Yeah,
damage to
yeah.
somebody.
No, but I meant the five color ones because it's like the
Well,
five
okay,
color
there you
hoops
go,
that
there you go.
you jump to through are
You,
not worth
I
the payoff.
all I heard was Niv Mizzets are bad, and I just didn't want to let
Okay,
that
half
slide.
of them have been good and half of them have been bad.
There you
How
go.
about that?
Yeah, there you go.
I was thinking, yeah, I was thinking of Niv Mizzet Reborn or whatever.
Yeah,
But it's true,
that's
there were also two Niv Mizzets before that that
yeah.
were definitely
There
bombs.
are no more Niv Mizzets before the five color thing happened. So like, I still think about the is it one, but um, anyway, yeah, didn't get there, but it definitely looks like a half court shot. To be fair, like when we talk about this being like, oh, it would be really cool if somebody made this deck and it like something happened with it. It would be sweet if somebody was able to brew around it and like it actually was able to work. I just
Right.
this time
That was
didn't.
more the thing. I think I even said at the time, like they made this card a little too bad, like I think intentionally.
Mhm.
But it would be awesome if, yeah, it'd be awesome if this were like a tier two
Exactly.
deck, you
Yeah,
know?
totally, totally. We have some overrated and underrated cards. My overrated card was Slime Against Humanity,
Hmm.
as the card that everyone was talking about. Jeff, I have some terrible news.
Oh no.
I have to say that I did draft and play a deck that had 4 copies of this card in it because they were given to me by the arena gods. And that deck did pretty okay. I think we went 4 or 5 wins. So
Gravy Train, maybe. Depends on which one of those two you get.
I gotta say that not that you should ever draft this in limited, but I was really, really harsh on this card when it first came out. And I think that this card has more play to it than the other versions of the cards. Most of the versions of the cards, Slime Against Humanity just makes a slime token equal to the 2 plus the number of Slime Against Humanities you have in your graveyard in exile. It has trample as well, which is really important. Um, you can build a Slime Against Humanity deck that has a bunch of other cards in it that aren't Slime Against Humanity. You don't have to build the like whatever 24 land, everything else is Slime Against Humanity deck. You can do other things and it can still be interesting. You can mill yourself, you can exile cards in your graveyard, you can
Yeah.
play other stuff. And then just play like a giant slime with trample.
Yeah. I mean,
So
maybe it's okay and limited. This card's garbage and constructed, though.
yes, but I will say that it has more play to it. It's more interesting of a card than the other ones that I was kind of comparing it to.
That's fair. When
So
you were had that build up, I thought you were gonna say you built the like 40 slime against humanity 20 land deck and played it constructed it.
no,
I was like, Zach, no. That's
but I would try like I don't
awful.
know
So awful.
we not play 40, play like 15 to 20.
So the very thing that you're describing that makes it like decent or better and limited than its like previous counterparts is exactly what makes it terrible and constructed is that to play with it in constructed, you need it's your payoff for your deck, and then you need enablers as well,
Mhm.
which means you're now suffering from that. I have to draw the
Or the
right
AB thing,
collection.
sure, right.
Whereas the strength, quote unquote, of these decks in the past was they always do the same thing. And it's just like this like
Which is what I thought
inevitable tide of rats or whatever.
yeah, I thought
This
the
is like, well,
weakness
they
of it
have to
was,
mill
yeah.
some slimes beforehand, otherwise they're playing a 3 mana 2/2. And then like they have to continue to draw slimes and not enablers after that. Like so the fact that I think this is the right way to make these cards. They can be relevant in limited if you get enough of them. You don't have to get 30 to
Hmm.
play them in limited, but also they're just unplayable essentially and constructed. You can try to make it work, but it's going to be a bad deck
Hmm.
because you need enablers to go along with the card that is basically saying you want as many of me as possible. This card is saying you want as many of me as possible, except you need some other cards to like
to
kick things
really
off.
push it over. Like this card did work well with I ended up playing it in limited with like a green red deck that had like Case of the Crimson Pulse, where you like it's a 3 mana, you discard a card, draw 2 cards. So I can discard my slime, draw more cards, and then the third or fourth slime is good. The first two are bad, and always know don't play the first two.
Yeah,
Discard them to different things.
right,
Um, and knowing like I have cards like demand answers and different things like that to discard to like use them to discard or always surveil them to the graveyard when I can. I'm
right.
like, sick, this card's supposed to be in the graveyard. Felt good. And also like a 3 mana like collect evidence was like sick. This wants to go into exile.
Right. It doesn't
That
matter
was
if this is my graveyard or
a
exile.
kind
This
of
is it.
interesting thing. Like it was a weird the reason it happened is because I was in the draft of like, oh shit, I'm running out of playables, and I ended up just getting slimes. So I was
Right.
like, well, I have four. Four is enough to play them. If I had three, I'd be like, if I had five, it'd be like definitely. But like,
Right.
four was
Four
like,
is right on that boundary.
I guess four of this card is better than four other kind of mediocre cards. So at
Right.
least
Like one
this,
card that's better and then three cards that are
they're
pretty
kind
damn
of
good. Yeah.
not really great. It was very interesting. But anyway, that's all I want to say about that card. We need to move on. Jeff, what was your overrated card?
I picked Assassin's Trophy.
Hmm.
I've never seen anyone cast this since I picked it. I've seen people
Yep.
cast it a long time ago. I have not
Yes.
seen people cast it in since I said this card was overrated. This card
Hmm.
just doesn't measure up to what we expect today.
No, maybe a sideboard one copy if you really need to get rid of something. But like,
Yeah,
I it's
just to
it's like,
reiterate, it's like the classic downside. You're ramping your opponent. That's a pretty big downside.
mhm,
That's only worth it if what you're killing is game breaking. And that's why
mhm,
this gets played in older formats occasionally, because it's like they're just cards that are so powerful that you need this flexible answer and
mhm,
you're willing to give them an extra land because the alternative is losing the game.
mhm.
Standard is not such a format,
No,
so
you also
giving your
have like
opponent an extra land is putting you so far behind and you're just killing what like even what's the best thing you even get with this like a Childred or Rafine or
or
like an Archangel, like it's just not worth it.
mhm, no. Yeah, I also think that like since we still have Boseiju in standard,
Right.
you
Osage is
already
just much better.
you already have this effect that you're
Yeah.
like worried
And
about slash willing
the
to use.
reason
So
Boseiju is good is that you don't have to use this. You only use it in those situations where it's like I gotta use this or I'm gonna die.
yeah.
Otherwise, you just play it as a land. So the fact that this only does the half of Boseiju that like it doesn't have the flexibility to be played as a
Hmm.
land.
It takes up
Uh,
a slot. Yeah. Um. So yep.
Card sucks.
Card sucks. And the like, yes, it sounded good when you're like killing Shieldreds and Rafines and stuff, but like the rest of your deck does that. You're black
Yeah,
green. Like, yes, you have so many removal
you have
spells.
another option. Yeah.
Yeah. My underrated card for things that I wanted to see more of was Pick Your Poison. I have not seen it, unfortunately.
Yeah. I am still holding out hope. I think this is a flexible enough card.
I think we'll definitely see
It,
it. A 1 mana sacrifice artifact enchantment or creature with flying. It's
yeah.
very strong, and I still think it's good. I've seen people use it in limited when their opponent turn one plays the tapped artifact land, the scene of the crime, and then you
Yeah.
play this on your turn one, make them sacrifice an artifact and stone rain the shit out of them. Hilarious. That's so funny to me.
I think Golgari decks are bringing this in against Domain because it's like it
Mm,
kills their big flyer or their leyline
Leyline
binding.
binding,
Yeah.
and they have to choose between. And sometimes it's like, do I sacrifice my leyline binding or my card value engine with the up to beanstalk? That's great. I like
Right.
it, but I haven't seen it really, so I'm still holding out hope, but we'll see.
Yeah.
Uh,
Random aside, but holy shit, is up the beanstalk like a sleeper. And we've talked about this before, but like during spoilers, I did not pick that card as
No, not
maybe
even.
the best card in the set. Apparently it was.
I guess so.
Yeah.
It wasn't even like close to something that was on my
I
radar.
wasn't even thinking about it. That was one of the cards that I just like scanned it and moved on immediately and
I was like, this is,
never really internalized what it did.
yeah. If it didn't draw a card when it entered,
Yeah,
or
it'd be
when it,
awful. But
yeah, if you, or,
now it's excellent.
yeah.
Um, okay, my underrated card was Urgent Necropsy. The only person I've ever seen cast this was me.
Mm.
But it's been huge when I've cast it. I get some blowouts off this card, so I'm still holding out hope on this one. I think this card is better than people think it is. Doesn't mean it's great. It just means it's better than people think it is.
Yeah, I agree. It's better than people think it is. I've seen it like it's obliterated me in like drafts.
Yeah,
I've
draft I
definitely
could see it for sure, right? Like,
and I mean like in draft sometimes they'll just like blow up three things where you're just like,
yeah. And
well,
you're
I thought
not,
I was gonna win next turn, but you just cast a thing that blew up three of my stuff and got one of your creatures back because blah 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 blah. And
yeah.
okay, well,
I've gotten like wedding announcement, Wandering Emperor and a token with this or something. Yeah, I'm just like,
that's
you.
yeah, that's very good. Um, so yeah, I think it's a great card. I've I have definitely come to another place with it. I'm just never playing green black decks really
Yeah.
to play it, but
And in limited, you're not that unhappy with 4 mana instant speed kill a creature, so
no.
like, in
Also,
limited, it's bound to be at least decent.
plus in the green black deck, you're probably not only destroying three of their things, but making like one or two tokens yourself because you're
Oh
collecting
yeah,
evidence. So,
love it. I mean, that is where I'm playing it in standard as well, is
mhm.
the
So there you go.
the roots deck.
The insidious roots.
Yeah.
All right, Jeff. Let's go to our favorite cards from this set. For limited,
Yes.
let's start with you.
Okay.
What was your favorite limited card from this set?
So I didn't play as much limited as you have. When I looked through the card image gallery to remind, like I had a card going in, looked through the card image gallery. There were a few cards that I was like, you know what? I did disproportionately like this card, probably more than its value and stuff. But in the end, I would just be being dishonest if I didn't select this card as my favorite limited card. And so for me, it was a no-brainer, Dog Walker.
All right,
Fucking
you know
loved
what?
Dog Walker, man.
Okay, okay. I will let you do Dog Walker because I was so close to picking Dog Walker as
Yeah.
my card
I figured
that
you'd have more options at your disposal given your
I had
more
thought about
familiarity.
it, and it was a card that you know, when the set came out, before we even played it, I called out Dog Walker as like the best common face down creature, hands
Yeah,
down.
you did. Yeah.
And I think it still holds itself up. That's the card like you want Dog Walker.
I
Like
still think of the 7-0 where I had 3 Dog Walkers, and I was just like, I don't think I had any. I had one rare in that deck, and it was an amazing rare, but I never drew it, and it didn't matter.
didn't matter.
So I actually
Yeah.
forgot I had that rare in there. Like the deck won because I had 3 Dog Walkers and then like mass
You
pump
know
stuff.
what?
And
This is the perfect segue into my favorite limited card because it's actually Gleaming Gear Drake,
yeah,
where
could see that.
Gleaming Gear Drake being like I just had talked about how I really enjoyed the blue red artifact part of limited, but I had a deck that had like huge bombs, but I didn't even need them. I had both Aurelia's Vindicator and the Incinerator of the Guilty, the big dragon,
Oof.
but like I
Yeah.
never drew either of them. And I had three Gleaming Gear Drakes, and that's how I won the game
Yeah,
every time. I was like, well,
nice.
a bunch of times I had like Vindicator and like Incinerator of the Guilty in my hand. I'm like, I think I just win with Gear Drakes right
I think
now.
I just I think I just play like 2 artifacts,
Hey,
win
let's
that
just
way.
sacrifice some clues and
Yeah.
attack and win. And like, and this is also just the card that when I'm in the draft and I see this pick six or something, I'm like, fuck, I should have been Gear Drake. Like, and it's like, Should I switch to
Too late to
artifacts?
switch? Do I switch? Do I
I'm
switch?
like blue green and it's like so close. I was like, do I just take it and then like maybe play like a kind of funky deck? That happens so often. And I would feel so frustrated if pack three there's like gear drakes going around. And I'm like, nobody's taking these? What is wrong with you people? So gear drake is definitely the one that I saw most often where I was like, I want to be playing that card. Um, Definitely my favorite. Oh, okay.
Zach just
Sorry.
has that face that he wants to go draft right now and like
I
hope he gets
know.
the
I
the
just
triple
getting
gleaming
bored.
gear
I just
drake
want to
again.
buy them in paper now just to have them.
Yeah, it's just like
Um,
spot like Visordrix. Just have
yeah.
like 50 gleaming gear drake.
I only have 9 Visordrakes. All right, it's not that
It's a
many.
lot of Visordrix, man.
Two play sets and an extra one. Um, your
Just in
favorite?
case. Just in case.
Yeah, yeah. Your favorite standard card?
All right. This is also a bit of a no-brainer for me.
Hmm.
Um, but I've just fallen in love in standard with Insidious Roots, man.
Hmm.
It's just it turns on my boy Tyvar. It lets me get to play Tyvar again, and I've been having a lot of fun with it. I call the deck Sweatpants. I don't know if you.
Why is I've never heard this?
um, for people who may not know, I don't know if like Roots is a thing outside of Canada, but
Oh, oh, it's a Roots joke. Roots is like a clothing store in Canada,
yeah,
and
famous for sweatpants.
yeah, the best sweatpants.
They make good stuff. It's a little pricey
It
for,
is,
casual wear, but
but
it's awesome.
mm,
So I was like, well, I originally had the deck just named Roots in my
hmm,
thing for a while, and I kept thinking of the
of
sweatpants, and I
Roots,
was like, I'm just
yeah,
gonna rename this deck Sweatpants.
sweatpants.
Yeah.
That's so funny. Wait, I love that so much. Why did I not think of that? That's so funny. I
I
love
gotta
it.
share a sweatpants list in the Discord
Yeah,
soon at some point.
you got to share that because I really want to. Well, I was gonna play. Sorry, I was gonna say I want to play your sweatpants, but that's
You want to play sweatpants in sweatpants?
in
Yeah,
sweatpants. I usually play in sweatpants.
yeah. They have to be Roots though, so
Of
you gotta
course.
up your sweatpants game for this one.
I, well, you don't. Do you think I don't have Root sweatpants? That's what I'm wearing all the time. I got gifted those. Actually, that was the best gift that I got. I think it was like the Christmas right before COVID hit. I got Roots sweatpants, and then it was like the thing I used more than anything
Oh
during
yeah,
COVID. It
that's a
was
great
like,
gift because it's like I don't know if I would buy that for myself,
mhm,
but I would use them like every day.
all
So
the time. Yeah, they're so great. I so actually my standard card is very similar to yours. I'm picking something that isn't. It's very. It's like when I read the card, I was like, "This is a Jeff card," but it's Aftermath Analyst
yeah,
because Aftermath Analyst is like the 2 mana 1/3 that like mills you 3 and then you can return all your lands from your graveyard to play. I really like the Nissa deck, the
yeah.
lands deck.
So I
Uh,
meant to stop you before you did this because I was gonna guess, and
Okay.
when I was going through the card list earlier, I was like, I want to guess World Souls Rage.
Hmm.
But
That's
I was
the
like,
best.
that's the joke guess, and I think my real guess would be Aftermath Analyst.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I mean, like I would, if you watched my stream the other day, we were able to World Souls Rage somebody for 2,000 damage, which was pretty
Yeah.
great. It was a lot of fun.
And only
Um,
because you're running out of time on clicking.
yes, I definitely had more mana than 2,000.
Yeah.
Um, but it takes a lot longer to get to 2,000 when you have to go in increments of 5.
Five, yeah.
Because you can't just type it, you have to
In
click it.
Magic Online, you could just type it, but
Yeah,
yeah.
so that was really interesting. It was pretty funny, but Aftermath Analyst is like the reason that the deck came together. Obviously, World
Yeah.
Souls Rage as the fireball is like really helpful. Obviously, it's the win condition, but getting like infinite mana or basically infinite mana, you can find a way to win the game. Like you don't
Right. And
necessarily need
anything, I mean,
that.
World Souls Rage is a terrible card. So the
Mhm.
fact that
is the
is your
card
win.
that does
Like
it. Yeah,
you could find something else if you needed to.
that's exactly.
It's
Um,
just the easiest. It's the most direct one.
and that deck, when I had played against it, so I think originally it was made by Sean Goddard or Beekeeper on MTGO and MTGA is his
Mm.
name. Um, I had played against someone who was playing it, and it seems like, oh, this is such a meme, so weird. I played it. That deck is strong. That deck's good. Like
We played against. Like, I think we were sorry, not playing against. We were like joking about it last week or something,
we
or
were, because I had played against it, being like, oh, that's a weird deck. Oh, that's so
just like
weird. That
oh,
doesn't.
oh,
Oh,
so silly.
whatever.
Yeah,
It's a real deck. Like you do win out of nowhere, and like your opponents really have to attack it from like counterspell or discard spell, like hand disruption.
yeah,
And like you don't need your creatures on the battlefield most of the time. Like you don't need Nissa. Like
yeah,
you can use a bunch of other different things. Nissa helps, but like,
yeah. And this is like puts it in easy mode basically.
mhm. But like ultimately, once you get virtue down, it's like, all right, you're dead.
Yeah.
Like,
Imagine if you had Lotus Cobra. Oof.
man, it was both of those. It's been a lot of fun playing with like lands that suck,
Right.
um,
The fetch
the
lands,
fetch
quote
lands,
unquote.
and replaying them over and over again because the deck gains like a ton of life. Because like a lot of
Yeah.
turns, you end up gaining like 6 or 7 life twice sometimes, and so it's
Yeah.
just like, and then you're just getting mana from playing lands that don't even fetch anything anymore because all the lands are out of your deck because you took them out of your deck. It's it's a lot of fun.
Right. I've played against it a bunch in Alchemy, so I don't know
Hmm.
what they necessarily lose or gain relative to standard.
I,
Um,
yeah, I wonder.
but I've never lost to it. But since I first saw it, um, I respected it, and I've been like very careful. Like
Hmm.
it'd be like, oh, I have to hold this for Nissa. I can't tap out to play a creature here. I have to hold up Torch the Tower in case they have Nissa, or they have the 1/3. Let's just
Hmm.
get that off the board.
Yeah,
I can't
and
let
like,
them bring back all their lands. No, that's
yeah,
not
and if
acceptable.
you're playing the deck, making like playing Aftermath Analyst when you have 6 mana is pretty big
Yeah.
because then they can't interrupt it.
I think my opponents made some mistakes on that where they play it on like turn 4
Yeah,
or
you don't want
5,
to do
and
that.
I'm like, no, you should have waited till 6. But I
Hmm.
assume part of it is I have Liliana, so it's like there's a lot of pressure.
To
Like,
play a
how are you ever
creature.
gonna get to 6 lands and play this? Like,
Hmm.
because I'm making you discard every turn. Um, Liliana's very good against the deck, I think, even though ostensibly it's like a graveyard deck that
Hmm. You're not
doesn't
getting your
mind.
creatures back necessarily.
It's
Yeah,
just like they need enough just raw cards. Like they need lots of lands, and then they need Nissa, and then they need so
yeah.
it's
Hmm.
Liliana's actually a lot better than it looks, and then it often just makes them sack Nissa or whatever.
I also think that deck, like, if you're playing it, um, your opening hand needs to have a couple fetch lands in it
Right.
because having an opening hand with like forest, mountain, island, Nissa is
Ugh,
not good.
gross. Yeah.
Like you need to have like a hand that has like 2 cards plus a bunch of fetch lands is like actually really good.
Right.
You're like, sick. I'm just gonna fetch land, fetch land, fetch land, fetch land, and play stuff along the way
Yeah.
because my graveyard like I have to have those cards in my graveyard for my deck to work. And
Right.
if I don't have them, it just kind of doesn't work. Like that makes Aftermath Analyst so bad when you play it on turn like 4 or 6, and you're like, well, I didn't fetch it all, so
Yeah.
nothing happens. Um,
Also had opponents who sacked it and got like 3 lands, and they don't have a Nissa or anything. Okay.
yeah, all right, that's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. 3 forests. Cool.
I There have been situations where like I have 2 World Souls Rage in my hand. I'm like, I have to World Souls Rage for 1 to get my blue source from my graveyard,
Right.
And like that's been a weird thing because like I need to deluge so that I can get more cards to keep it going, and that's
Yeah.
been a really weird situation. Be like, I think I have to do this right now. Okay. But like you can
Right.
use cards like Shigeki gets back your World Soul's Rages, and then you have Virtue of Strength to get Shigeki back and stuff like that. So
Sure.
you can loop it. Anyway, it's so much fun. The worst thing that can happen is somebody exiles your graveyard and you want to just shoot them in the face. But
I've
besides
also
that,
seen a Sultai version where the payoff, I guess,
oh,
is Slogurk. Um,
stupid Slowgurk. No, fuck that card.
it was pretty good in the game where I didn't draw my generic removals. Like I drew only red damage based removal
Oh,
and
sure.
not like kill spells. And I was like,
Mhm.
ah, I'm
I
really
can't
gonna
kill
lose to
this.
a fucking Slowgurk.
Like,
But I won that match. But it was like that one game where I'm just sitting there like that thing's fucking huge.
yeah. Oh man. Anyway,
And they
Aftermath
always had
Analyst.
like some chump sitting around, sitting there with Liliana's, being like, "Oh, I'm just gonna sacrifice that stupid like aftermath analyst that no longer does anything."
Yeah.
Like,
Like son of a bitch. Um Jeff, in unison, when we talk about Explorer, just want to say our favorite card.
yeah, sure.
All right, three, two, one.
Vein
Vein Ripper.
Ripper.
Obviously,
Yeah,
that's the best card for Explorer for this set. Um,
yeah. Explorer All Star,
yeah, we already talked about it.
as I predicted.
Of course, of course.
Yeah.
Um, do you have a favorite card for Timeless?
So I haven't actually really played Timeless
Hmm.
since we did this episode. But I feel it's so long ago that we did this episode. Um, but I think like looking through, I'm gonna go with Raucous Theater. I
Hmm.
think it's just fair to say that these lands have actually made an impact on Timeless. And I think they're cool lands, really great addition to like the playbook. And so I'll obviously just choose the best one, which is Raucous Theater.
I want to say I said the broad surveil lands having
Yeah,
one copy or like two, like one copy of Raucous Theater and one copy of whatever, like Sewer City or whatever the blue black one is.
yeah,
Um, those end up being super helpful. I haven't played a ton of Timeless either, as we are saying, but like having the option to fetch for a surveil land when it's
right.
convenient
Makes your
is
fetch lands even better if that
even better, right?
like if you thought fetch lands needed a little help we need to make them a bit better, let's give
Mm.
them, a little more utility. They just got that. They can
Yes,
now surveil when you don't need to get an untapped land.
untapped land, um, which is huge. So like
And the
these
funny thing is
lands,
I hate temples, but I love these lands. So
that's so. I feel exactly the same way that I hate temples. I have almost like play sets of almost all the temples because they
yeah,
were like 15 cents.
yeah,
Um,
everybody hates them.
yeah, but
But some combination of the upgrade to surveil and fetchable, like just having the basic
they're
land
so
types,
expensive.
yeah, these
They're
are
like
great.
they're so expensive to buy in paper. It's crazy. But anyway, uh, super great. Happy we have them. Now we come down. This is our last category, Jeff. We're closing
Yes.
in on our happy hour. This is our favorite art. Now, I want to go first
Okay.
just because my favorite art, I like to do this thing for myself where I just pick a card from the main set that doesn't have a special art or whatever.
Yeah.
Because obviously the special arts are really beautiful and all that stuff. I also spend a lot more time just looking at the regular arts.
Hmm.
Um, and so it's kind of fun for me to see this. But I'm going to pick a card that is very well known that people look at and see all the time,
Oh.
which is the card Inside Source by John Stenko. But I think this art is sneaky good because it's one of the ones where I didn't realize what was happening in the art for like weeks.
Yeah, I love those ones.
And I finally actually looked at it and I was like, because when you look at it kind of from far away, it just kind of looks like one woman who's standing by like a yellow wall and there's some darkness behind her and blah, blah, blah. But then you
Hmm.
look and you see there's actually somebody back there in the shadows who's handing her, oh no, that is taking a scroll from her, and so obviously our citizen is giving our detective some information.
Right.
And there's actually people there, and our detective looks super cool and has a sweet monocle and like a sideways hat and everything.
Oh, they have a
Um,
hat? That's weird.
yeah. But anyway, this card has every time I like see it in my hand, I do look at it for a moment, and I think the use of like the stark contrast. There's a very sharp line in the middle of it of like the daylight and the shadows, and that our detective is the shadowy figure is interesting as well. Um, because a lot of the other pieces look like the detective's going into shadowy places to find bad things. But
Right.
this is showing that the detective is using kind of seedy means to get what they need for their mission. I know. I think it does a good job of conveying a
Yeah.
really nice story, and I
I've seen this art plenty
really
of
love it.
times. This I loved this card in
Hmm.
limited. And I never really noticed that. And now that you pointed out, it is so stark. It's literally just like the wall cuts off into the darkness. And
Yeah, and it's not even just like straight down the middle. It's like almost three quarters of
right,
like the
yeah, it's just
frame.
a little off center.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, so when I see it now, I'm like, how did I not see this before? But I also just didn't look closely enough to notice it. So I think
Yeah.
that's really just well done. Where it's like this person who's lurking in the shadows is also kind of lurking in the shadows of the art,
Hmm.
where you gotta find them.
Yeah.
Very
Anyway,
cool.
we gotta look
So
for more of John Stanko's stuff because that's
uh,
pretty sweet.
my actual favorite art in the set is a not in the main set. Um, I did also pick one from the main set, but
All right. Well,
uh,
tell me the other one first. I'm gonna look it up.
so it is a dossier showcase,
Hmm.
and it is Yaris, Roar of the Old Gods.
Oh.
I just think like I tend to love like Magic does a lot of art that is realism like the right word where it's like the characters
Hmm.
look real and the settings look real and stuff. And I tend to like these little more uh artist interpretation kind of little less like quote unquote real and a
Hmm.
little more
Artistic.
yeah, I'm not even sure that's the right word, just like I think part of it's back to the old Magic days where like the Shivan dragon didn't necessarily look like if I came across a dragon in real life, this is what it would look like.
Hmm.
It looked like an artist depiction of a dragon that was really cool. And so I have this affiliation with old stuff like that. But I think this piece was just really awesome of him like leaning back and his hair's like whipping.
Hmm.
Um, and it has these, magical tendrils and everything going on. I think that's just like that art is awesome. And to me, I like it better than the more realistic Centaur. Like the one they have in the
Hmm.
main set matches the vibe of everything. So it makes sense. It's obviously a great piece because it looks like a real life Centaur. But to me, this one's just evokes more in me. I think it's just I enjoy it a little better. And I think the dossier card frames are really cool as well. So I'm sure that has something to
Totally.
do with it.
Yeah. There's something that I really like about like so this is made by Peter Diamond, but the beard on Yaris is so bright and white as
Yeah.
the one that we see in the original card frame is just kind of like blends in with the rest of the world. And this one makes him feel a little bit jollier. Has like not I'm not saying like Santa vibes, but like um he is laughing. It seems like he has more joy and there's life to him and his beard is like
Yeah.
vibrant and like pops, you know. Um
It's somehow like more of an action shot, even though the other one is him like trying to rally, be like I think he's
mhm,
swinging his sword or whatever, looking like he's going to rally the troops. This one has more motion in it.
mhm. Yeah, absolutely. It also reminds me of I was very close to picking Airtight Alibi as my favorite
Mm, yep.
because of just like the brightness of the white, but also the texture of it. We have Jeremy Wilson, who also did Bone Splinters for another set,
Oh
Insidious
yeah. I
Roots.
think I think I know which. Oh, I Insidious Roots was on my list as well.
Yeah, so I was definitely looking at a couple of those, um, of just how stark the contrast is between the colors. Um, the first time I noticed this artist, Jeremy, was in when he did Embreth's Shield Breaker, the showcase frame in Throne of Eldraine, where it's someone
That one's
breaking the
really
shield,
good.
and
Yeah.
the rest of it kind of looks like snow on the ground because it's all white and the head is white as well. Um, so pieces like that, I just always I think that Magic is a really obviously great game, but like if the art didn't look super cool, I wouldn't be interested in this game at all.
Oh, the art is fantastic.
So I the art is such a huge part to me
Yeah.
that it's important just to say, hey, somebody worked fucking really hard to make this reality. So shout out to all the artists out there making Magic cards because hey,
It's more important than a
it's
lot
all
of people
awesome.
give you credit for.
Yes. Yeah. And more important than ever to be reminded that people make this and spend their life doing this. And I think it's great.
Yeah. If I was choosing from the main set, I was thinking
Hmm.
Insidious Roots. I have to keep my eye on this Jeremy
Hmm.
fellow, but I was going to choose Deadly Cover Up, actually. I really love the art of that
Oh.
piece. And I think it does flow into what I'm saying of a little more of it doesn't look like a real
Hmm.
person, a photo of a real person, and it's a little more sort of
Yeah.
artistic license being in there. But this reminds me of like just a really well done piece, but also kind of harkens me back to the older Magic days where a lot more cards kind of looked like this.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is a Sam Gay, which I believe is Rebecca Gay's son,
Oh, really?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Let me just uh,
That would
look,
check out. He learned from his mom.
or I believe maybe Sam is a woman. I can't. No, no, no. I believe I remember hearing that.
They
I
learned
actually,
from their mom.
yeah, I haven't actually seen a picture of them before. Um, so I was under the impression it was a man, but I actually do not know. And their website just has a bunch of pictures of women because, well, as we know, Rebecca makes a lot of women, so that's part of her style. But anyway, I do believe that Sam
That
is.
totally checks out. You can see, I was
Mhm.
even gonna mention you could see like Rebecca Gay influences in this, and now I see the last name is the same, so
Yeah,
that's cool.
totally cool. Um, all right, I do. Yes, I do think I was mistaken. This looks like. Oh, sorry. Sam is they them. That is part of why I was confused. All right. Um, but anyway, yes. So Sam Gay got to be on my radar 100%.
Yeah,
They are a fantastic artist, and I've just loved that style that they have
yeah.
and their mother has.
This piece looks great. Great job, Sam.
Great job, Sam. Perfect. Well, Jeff, you know, we're coming to the end of the episode. It's been a set.
Yeah,
I
these
feel
ones are always
like
so fun. There's always that bittersweet feeling at
I
the
know
end.
it feels like it's kind of over, and
Ready
I,
for the new, for the new set, even though it's only been like a month.
it feels like this one's really fast, but
Yeah,
you know, Magic's gonna keep churning, keep brewing.
like new sets are always exciting, but
Hmm.
yeah, feel like there's so much un I always feel like there's undiscovered things going on
There
when
are,
we leave the set, but this one especially, just because of
yeah,
the quick turnaround.
quick turnaround. Anyway, Jeff, let's talk about the beer for this evening because this
Yes.
is our last call. So, as always, we rate this beers on a scale from bronze to mythic, just like the tiers in Arena. And so, we're talking about Lagunitas IPA. Now, we like to rate them on the scale, but we don't want to make you feel bad if you're in bronze or in mythic or whichever tier you're in. Everyone's in different tiers at different times. It doesn't really matter. Um, so it's just a fun way to rate beers. With that being said, bronze beers are horrible. They're trash. They you have to spit them out. You have to pour them on the ground. They're disgusting. You can't drink them.
Yeah. Silver beers are. just bad or boring. Um, the Budweisers of the world tend to find
Mhm.
themselves here.
Gold beers are fine, but you wouldn't really drink them again.
Platinum beers are good, and you would drink them again.
Diamond beers are exceptional, and you would recommend these to your friends.
And Mythic, these are the best of the best. These are the vein rippers of the beer world.
All right, Lagunitas IPA. Jeff, I want to hear your thoughts first. I've already decided, but
This beer is exactly like I remember it. It's like I think of it as kind of a rough around the edges IPA. Like they were one of the first people to sort of do this, and since then maybe it's been refined or tweaked, or people have come up with different ways to do IPAs. And this was the how IPAs were made back in the day, and they've just kind of kept
mhm,
it the same. I like that because it gives me that bit of uh just like thinking back to when I was drinking these and being like, hold on, do these not suck?
mhm,
Because like everyone was like, oh, I don't know, it's too strong for me, or it's like, just not used to that flavor. So these broke a lot of ground. So I have a soft spot for this. I remember the days when this came in like a hipster bottle. That's what I was getting at the
oh
time.
yeah, yeah,
It
yeah,
wasn't a
yeah,
tall boy like this. It was like a little kind of, I think it was one of those chubby bottles, but
yeah, yeah. They used to come in
um
the chubby bottles. Yeah.
so I have that nostalgia aspect. So when I try to balance these things, I think for me, this beer probably nets out at platinum. Like it's pretty
Hmm.
good, and I'll pick it up again. Um, and it's just like I remember it though, which I think is cool. Whereas
Hmm.
like I'm like, yep, that's Lagunitas. So maybe for that reason it deserves to be higher, but I'm gonna stick platinum on this one.
All right, all right. Well, I am gonna go up to diamond.
Yeah.
This reminded me that I actually really like this because when
Hmm.
I, in my mind, would drink it back in the years when I wasn't really drinking IPAs at all, I was like, oh yeah, I was the guy that was saying like, oh, this is
Right.
too bitter or too strong or whatever. This tasted so smooth and
Right.
sweet and
Yeah.
nice. It kind of is like a IPA, like had a baby with an amber a little bit. Like
Hmm.
there's a little bit of that going on. Because it isn't, if you pick up an IPA from any other brewery right now and compare it next to this, they seem completely different. Um, so
Yeah.
I
It's
liked it
funny
a lot.
you called it smooth and I said rough around the edges. So
Well,
I called
I
it
guess,
rough and you called it smooth.
I
But
guess like what I meant, yeah, 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 yeah. I guess like, um, yeah, I guess it did feel kind of smooth to me. Um,
yeah, I meant more like IPAs now will have citrus or like
yes,
fruit or like something, and this is an IPA, right?
yeah,
So it's like the first iteration kind of thing.
exactly. And I think what I'm getting from that is kind of a smoothness and a sweetness that reminds me of ambers in a way that other IPAs that are so bright, like the citrus or some of
Right,
those
like it's
juice notes.
relying on its body more than current IPAs do.
There we go. Thank you.
Yeah.
The body is so much more present, and it's one of the things or the qualities I really like about East Coast IPAs. Of
Hmm.
like the body is something that I really enjoy, and I want my beer to have that. And sometimes the West Coast stuff tends to be a little bit more citrus and hoppy
Very
forward. That's
citrusy,
like
yeah.
it's not as bitter as some of the other ones, which I like a lot.
Right.
So it's completely changed in my mind, I guess now. And so that ended up going up from being like, oh yeah, this is just Lagunitas. I remember not liking it that much, but like
Right.
we have to do it. To maybe I should be
Yeah,
getting this beer.
buy
I think
this more.
I like this a lot.
It's a good beer. To me,
Yeah,
it's just I think uh it plays a similar role for me as Mad Tom, and I
totally.
just love my Mad Tom, so
Yeah. Well,
um
this could be my Mad Tom,
there you
you
go.
know.
Yeah, yeah.
So maybe that's what that is. In any case, Jeff, it is closing time. Time for us to end the show and end Murders at Karlov Manor. Just kidding.
Wah,
We,
wah.
we'll have more murder stuff, obviously, as
I
we
mean, it'll be
continue
in
to play these
standard
cards.
for eternity. That's how it
Yeah,
works now, right?
basically, yeah.
Yeah.
But if you want to talk to us, you can reach us at Arena Regulars on Twitter and Instagram.
You may also find us on Arena itself. Username Arena Regulars Podcast.
If you would like to talk to me personally, you can find me on Twitch. I stream Monday to Thursday at regular_Zach. But Jeff, where can they find you?
Best place is the Discord channel. We have lots of chats coming up. We even have an event that we're
Mm-hmm.
running, and so if
Yeah,
that
yeah.
goes well, we might even do more. So try to jump in. Link for that down below in the show notes.
Also, please leave us a review on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all the different places. Go to YouTube, do all the stuff. But most importantly, please tell your friends about our podcast. If you like us, share us with your friends. That's the most helpful thing you could possibly do. This has been the Arena Regulars.
Reminding you that I picked Bane Ripper as my 3-pointer, and it won the Pro Tour. The Pro Tour immediately after it won. Just saying.
Yep, whatever. Good night. All right, that's fine.